房子是终身大事，可能很多业主是贷着款，然后首付也是借的，大家都很不容易。
In June last year, a homeowner uploaded this video of the B2 area of Rongchuang Cultural and Tourism Town in Huadu District, Guangzhou City. Her despair and helplessness can be seen from her tearful account. 9 months have passed since then, but the project remains unchanged. Rongchuang Cultural and Tourism Town in Huadu District is a project worth tens of billions of yuan. When initially released, it gained immense popularity, making it difficult to acquire a unit in the apartment complex. Nevertheless, in 2021, the developer company Rongchuang China encountered a debt crisis, leading to a suspension of the project due to a disrupted capital chain. During this period, homeowners have protested several times, and the developer has organized several superficial resumptions of work. But in reality, the external scaffolding has been dismantled long ago, and the developer only arranges a few workers to do some occasional work every day for show. The project does not appear to have made any progress, and the completion of the houses is still a long ways off. This project is almost certain to be abandoned. Buying a home is a major event for every family. In many countries and regions, buying off-plan properties is normal, but abandoned construction is not normal. In China, buying off-plan properties is like a high-stakes gamble for homeowners. If they win the gamble, they can smoothly move into their own property. But if they lose, the construction may be abandoned, and they not only have no place to live, but also may fall into a financial trap from which they cannot escape. On March 31st, in Songming County of Kunming City in Yunnan Province, the homeowners of Yongjinfu properties, which were constructed by Blu-ray Estate, gathered at the county government offices to protest against the project being abandoned for almost a year and facing the risk of being left unfinished. The desperate homeowners had nowhere else to turn. The authorities dispatched more than 100 police officers to disperse the protesters and arrest some of them. According to reports from homebuyers, they bought apartment suites in December of 2020. However, in June 2021, the project was halted. The homeowners tried to fight for their rights, but Blu-ray Estate has shirked responsibility, claiming that there is no longer any construction funds available, and the government has also refused to take responsibility. The property owners are questioning who authorized the misappropriation of the massive amount of funds, totaling 680 million yuan, meant for the construction of the houses. Now, at the expected time of delivery, the construction site is still in shambles. With the project halted for 2 years, owners have to pay the mortgage each month, and there seems to be no way to file a complaint. Who will speak up for the thousands of ordinary people affected by this? According to reports, the Yongjinfu project consists of 2 parcels of land, Yating and Guanting. Yating has a total of 16 buildings with a planned total floor area of about 234,400 square meters, and was originally scheduled for completion on March 31st, 2023. Guanting has a total of 9 buildings with a planned total floor area of about 120,000 square meters, and was originally scheduled to be done on June 30th of 2023. In addition, in April 2022, Blu-ray faced mandatory enforcement of a debt of 1.069 billion yuan due to a default of 32.8 billion yuan in debt. The company's other 4 projects in Kunming are also currently suspended. Perhaps some of you may ask, why can't they sue in court? Well, let's take a look at how the court handled a typical case of homeowners suing developers for unfinished properties. On April 2nd, a lawyer from mainland China shared a screenshot of a judgment from the Erqi District Court in Zhengzhou on March 31st, and said that this was a case where homeowners, the plaintiffs, sued developers for failing to complete their homes on time. The judgment stated that the plaintiff sued the defendant based on the commodity house sales contract, which meets the conditions for litigation. However, because the building in question is a problematic case involving the interests of the public, with complex relationships and non-single legal issues, the court decided to reject the lawsuit, believing that it is appropriate to first let the relevant government departments handle the dispute over the problematic building. The verdict also stated that the court would collect a reduced case processing fee of 9,493 yuan. The lawyer who shared the verdict sarcastically commented that the court's logic of rejecting the lawsuit in order to resolve the dispute over the involved property was really amazing. Another person who appeared to be a lawyer commented on the thread and described an even more absurd case of an unfinished building, where the judge dismissed the homeowner's request for a refund, citing it being not beneficial to the upstream and downstream partners of the developer. The plaintiff was ordered to withdraw the case and pay the fees on the spot, and the case dragged on for a year and 3 months before ultimately being dismissed, with no reduction in the litigation fees. Many of the owners of unfinished buildings have no say to protect their rights and can only move into the unfinished buildings out of helplessness. This is Bieyang Happiness City, a stalled housing project in Kunming, Yunnan Province. The project began selling in 2012, with developers promoting it as a future bustling metropolis. However, 3 years later, the development went bankrupt and became a derelict construction site. The area is now in a state of disrepair, with weeds, bricks, and debris scattered everywhere. There are also abandoned concrete mixers and even a bulldozer standing in front of the unfinished buildings. 73-year-old Liu Guifen is one of the residents who voluntarily moved into the Bieyang Happiness City after it became a deserted construction site. Her husband suffered from chronic illness, and she also gradually became frail and unable to move easily. Their biggest wish was to have their own home, a simple place to live in. Her son worked outside the city and 9 years ago saved enough money to buy an off-plan apartment on the 4th floor in the bustling area of Kunming, hoping to provide a comfortable home for her and her husband. At that time, the developer promised that the construction will be completed within 3 years. The apartment complex is located near the Guanshang Second Primary School, in the central area of Kunming's Guandu district. Transportation is convenient, with a subway station, a school district, and a commercial district nearby. The residents were attracted to the apartment complex and eagerly looked forward to moving in and settling down in their new homes. However, even after Liu Guifen's husband passed away, their family never received a notice allowing them to move in. The Bieyang Happiness City project was abandoned. This news was like a bolt from the blue. In the end, their son had to bear a high mortgage. Their daughter-in-law could not withstand the pressure and divorced him, and the son had to go out for work to support the family. Only Liu was left behind, becoming a stay-behind elder, gradually growing older in hopeless waiting. In 2020, after multiple failed attempts at defending their rights, Liu Guifen, against the opposition of her family, chose to move into Bieyang Happiness City along with other homeowners. Every day I have to climb 4 floors. The room is damp and the waterproofing layer is not done well. Every day water drips down. When my rheumatism flares up, I just have to bear with it myself. No one can help me, she said. If the building project could have been completed as scheduled, her spouse might not have passed away so early, and she would have had a happy family. She might have even held her grandchild in her arms by now. On June 4, 2020, Liu Ping, another homeowner who had purchased a unit in the complex, could no longer bear the financial pressure and moved into her unfinished home after simple refurbishments, becoming Liu Guifen's neighbor. Liu Ping said, "My husband and I are now unemployed. If we don't move in, we cannot afford to pay a rent of 30,000 yuan per year. Now we also have to repay a monthly housing loan of 9,200 yuan. Every time she talks about this, Liu Ping couldn't stop her tears from falling." The dozens of homeowners who moved into Bieyang Happiness City all have their own stories. They are a microcosm of the thousands of families across the country who have been affected by abandoned real estate developments, and each have their own bitter stories. How many abandoned building projects are there in China, and how many families have fallen into this trap? This information is only known to the Chinese government and is unlikely to be disclosed to the outside world. In China, unfinished buildings are common in cities of all sizes. According to statistics collected by some enthusiastic netizens, among first and second-tier cities, Kunming ranks first with a rate of 10%, covering an area of 3.5 million square meters. Zhengzhou ranks second with a rate of 9% in an area of 4.4 million square meters. Beijing, Nanjing, Guangzhou, and Shanghai are also on the list. Among third and fourth tier cities, Nantong ranks first with a high rate of 11% and an area of 1.2 million square meters. Luoyang has an area of 580,000 square meters with a rate of 5%, while Liu'an and Yantai are also listed. As the issue of unfinished building projects gradually worsened, in July 2022, the Chinese government had to propose a guaranteed delivery policy. Various regions have continuously introduced different versions of guaranteed delivery policies. On September 7th last year, the city of Zhengzhou, where unfinished building projects are a serious problem, issued a notice requiring all unfinished building projects to resume substantive work on October 6. However, according to feedback from several Henan netizens, some sites only have a few workers, and even staged handover of completed units as a publicity stunt. One homeowner named Mr. Lee said, "The developer said that as long as there is one person working, it counts as resuming work." According to official media in mainland China, as of January 15th this year, a total of 290 unfinished projects covering 45.32 million square meters of unfinished construction area and 408,000 unsold units is spread across 32 cities, including Wuhan, Zhengzhou, and Xi'an. Among these projects, 126 are still in a state of suspension, accounting for 43.4%, and 16 other projects have only intermittent and small-scale resumption of work. Only 62 projects have achieved full resumption of work, accounting for a mere 21.4%. Unfortunately, the ultimate goal of the guaranteed delivery policy is to deceive the owners of unfinished buildings and maintain so-called social stability. So why are there so many abandoned buildings? Actually, the driving force behind them is the government, banks, and developers working together to plunder the wealth of the people. Developers purchase land use rights from the government, obtain engineering, planning, and construction permits. They start construction, and once the project progresses to 25% of the total investment, they can apply to the government's property management division for a pre-sale permit, which allows them to start selling. Home buyers usually use the savings of both spouses, their parents, and/or borrow from friends for the down payment, which is typically 30% of the total house price. Then they borrow the remaining 70% from the bank and start repaying the mortgage on a monthly basis. The down payment from the buyer and the loan from the bank are stored in a dedicated bank account, which is supervised by the bank and dispersed to the developer based on the progress of the project. However, in reality, the bank often turns a blind eye to when and how the developer uses the funds during the supervision process. As long as the framework of a building is completed and the roof is sealed, the developer can basically receive full payment from the bank. This is why so many abandoned buildings have their framework built but are never finished. For developers, as long as they obtain project funds, they can quickly purchase land, open more projects, and sell more pre-sale properties to achieve maximum profits. For banks, they are happy to see buyers take out loans to buy houses and earn interest on the loans. As for whether the developer delivers the houses to the buyers, that is not the bank's concern. For local governments, they are very happy to see real estate developers buying land and starting new projects. Through this seemingly reasonable and legal method, the government collects a large amount of funds. Whether the developer can successfully deliver the houses is also not the government's primary concern. Therefore, the interests of the buyers are not taken into account during any part of this process. The government only sells land, the bank only manages loans and lending, and the developer only thinks about launching new projects and receiving the money. Therefore, although there are regulations for special use of project funds, once the progress payment reaches the developer's hands, it's difficult to regulate what they do with the money. Some house payments even end up overseas and become personal deposits, luxury houses, and cars. Some fall into the pockets of government officials at all levels. Taking China's top-selling real estate company Country Garden as an example. In 2018, Country Garden launched a high turnover policy that was unimaginable. On the day they bought the land, the design team had to produce blueprints overnight and started selling houses 3 months in. the funds returned to positive in the 4th month, and funds were turned over again in the 5th month. The recovered funds were used to buy more land and expand the business. There is significant risk to a high-speed turnover because new real estate projects are constantly being built. With too many real estate projects launched, if a certain project's sales don't go according to plan or the repayment speed is slow, the capital chain will break, leading to some projects running out of funds for construction and being abandoned. Once abandoned, some small developers are unable to recover and will immediately run away with the money, leaving behind unfinished buildings with home buyers. In China, all banks are state-owned. In the entire process, only home buyers are the vulnerable group. Since China began housing market reform in 1998, government revenue has relied heavily on land sales, known as land finance. It should be noted that in these land sales by the Chinese government, they only sell the 70-year-old land use rights to real estate developers, without selling ownership. After 70 years, the land use rights will be taken back by the government and can be sold again. Since 2017, land sales revenue has accounted for more than 30% of local fiscal revenue for 5 consecutive years. In 2020, it reached 43.59%, and in 2021, it dropped to 41.81%. According to data released by the Chinese Ministry of Finance, from 2012 to 2021, land sales revenue accounted for 27% to 44% of local government total revenue in the past decade. According to a survey conducted by Pei Changhong, director of the Institute of Economics at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, land costs generally account for over 40% of housing prices. Ren Zeping, vice chairman of the China Private Economy Research Association, wrote that they analyzed the housing prices in 11 cities, including Beijing and Shanghai, and found that land costs accounted for 40.1% of housing prices, while tax costs accounted for 16.7%, which means the government takes almost 60% of the total housing price. In 2015, the proportion of land costs to total housing prices in Shenzhen was over 70%. So it can be seen that the root cause of people being forced to invest all their savings in purchasing hefty-priced off-plan properties is the irresponsible and greed-driven Chinese Communist Party. Some viewers may ask, how can the government intentionally exploit people like this? Unfortunately, don't forget that in 1989, the Chinese Communist Party used hundreds of thousands of troops to massacre tens of thousands of ordinary people in Beijing on June 4th. Through family planning policies in the 80s, they killed more than 30 million innocent babies. And in recent decades, they have even been involved in live organ harvesting from regular citizens for profit. Under the Chinese Communist Party, the suffering of the Chinese people will continue.